down. Back to the leader, Dave Jolly. Johnstone in fourth in the Acura. Behind the drafting duo, now Johnson and Shaw in that order for second and third. As they go through turn 6, Johnstone in fourth is the series point leader. Jolly just 2 points back. Johnson, Shaw, and Peterson. In the scenic Finger Lakes region of upstate New York at Watkins Glen, a corner worker gets a break from the sunshine with his umbrella, waving the cars past a stalled automobile on the course. Don Baldiga's Plymouth Turismo ends its day, just barely off the course there at turn 4. Amos Johnson in car number 7 out of Raleigh, North Carolina. His teammate, former mechanic and now team driver Dennis Shaw in number 6, drafting past. This is a maneuver that they employ quite often, trying to gain a little jump on the competition. It looks like they're playing leapfrog and having fun out there. Of course they are, but there's a much more important purpose to doing that drafting by. And right now that purpose is to catch race leader Dave Jolly in the number 81 Mazda. Amos Johnson talks about that strategy.
Well, I think here at this race, team strategy means a lot, because the straightaway is such that if the two of you can work together, you can gain maybe a second a lap. If you don't have a teammate to work with, you've got to go out and try to find somebody that's willing to play with you.
And that's from one of the men who's been a master of this series. Amos Johnson has been racing for 20 years in the series that's now the Luke Clutch Challenge, and he's the second all-time winner in this series with 17 victories. Good battle ongoing in mid-pack here. The number 3, Joe Hutton's Volkswagen Scirocco, and he's trying to hold off the John Norris Mitsubishi. Norris teamed with Mike Rutherford in the other Mitsubishi Eclipse, brand new car for 1990. In the showrooms, 1989 on the racetrack. Here's Dave Jolly, the race leader once again, and a bit of lap traffic for Dennis Shaw to negotiate. Bill Topping's Mercure waving the leaders past. Check that, that's Anthony Capizzi's Mercure. Second and third, Dennis Shaw and Amos Johnson, both racing out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And off the course goes Pat Pearson's 200 SX Nissan. He avoided the bout with the wall, that wrinkled up Walter Payton's car, and quickly he's back on the course. Pat Pearson, no apparent damage to his Nissan. You see just how close these cars appear to their showroom counterparts as we take another look at Pearson's spin. Except for safety considerations, they really are, with lowered suspensions and open exhausts and wider wheels and tires, quite like the machines that you can go to the showroom and buy. Not quite showroom stock, a little bit enhanced performance, but very stock. However, some of these cars are turbocharged and some aren't, and that has given IMSA and these racers a lot to grapple with. And it's also given our Rick DeBrule something interesting to talk about as the non-turbo Acura battles the turbocharged Mazdas.
It's the eternal question, apples and oranges. How do you make them equal? In this case, we've got a turbo apple and a normally aspirated orange, and that's the problem facing IMSA. How do they mix turbos and non-turbos? You see, the new Mazda MX-6s are turbocharged, while cars like the Acura and the Oldsmobile are not. IMSA has a formula to try and make the cars equal. 15 pounds for every horsepower the motor puts out, as well as letting the non-turbos have extra engine modifications.
Well, it's never a question of making apples and oranges equal. And when you're mixing 2-valve and 4-valve engines, you've got different cases. The best we can do is make the rules close enough where the rules are no longer a function, where it comes down to how good the driver is, how good the level of preparation is.
It's a system Amos Johnson likes.
I think it's a very difficult problem. I think IMSA does a very good job with trying to equalize them. But on a very short track, on most of the street courses, the non-turbo car is going to have the advantage. And on a long straightaway, a fast track, the turbo car is going to have the advantage. You can't have one set of rules for one type of track and another set for another. So they have to strike a happy medium and accept the fact that one car is going to have an advantage here and the other one's going to have the advantage there.
But the Acura boys aren't so sure about it.
I don't think you can. I don't think that'll ever work, simply because not unless you've got a fair split of racetracks, a fair split of teams. the cars are so different in the way they output the power. You might end up with the same ultimate horsepower figure, but the turbos can get to that horsepower sooner. They can have the turbo working at full boost at a very low RPM, where typically an atmospheric engine has a very narrow power band if you're really going for peak horsepower up high. I think it's nearly impossible to do.
IMSA's hope is that while the turbos may have an edge at a track like Watkins Glen, the non-turbos will do better on the tighter circuits. The Acura camp isn't too sure that will really happen, but if it does, Amos Johnson is...
ESPN Home Video.
Watkins Glen has changed over the years. Years ago, these used to be the Howgate Tavern. They used to bring out tables and chairs and watch the cars as they'd race by on the track. Now things have changed drastically. The Howgate's and Mr. Chicken, and there's a Burger King across the street. We'll get back to racing at Watkins Glen in just a moment, but first let's go to Indianapolis Raceway Park and Larry Newber. And race on stock tires. They're not exactly like the tires you're going to have on your car at home. For example, this is a stock tire, the way it comes out of the factory. It's a street competition tire. It has about 6/32 of an inch of tread. They take this tire and they shave off about half the tread. The result is this tire with only 2 to 3/32 of an inch. It's a stiffer tire with less side-to-side movement. Helps corner better. And if they calculate everything out just right, at the end of the race, this is what they have, a tire that's almost bald.
And that's when that tire works the best. The deeper the tread, the surface of the tire can move around a bit. Tread block squirm, the tire company engineers call it. That's what they seek to avoid. But these are the same kind of radial tires that you can buy for your car. There are 4 participating manufacturers in the Luke Cluck Challenge: BF Goodrich, Yokohama, General, and Toyo tires. With BFG, a 3-time race winner this season, Yokohama tires have gone to victory lane once on Amos Johnson's car at Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. Second and third place past the start-finish line. Here's your race leader. Dave Jolly in the number 81 Mazda has an enviable finishing record. 63 top 10 career finishes. That's 74% of the races he started. He's wound up in the top 10. Quite a record. The man who is on the top of that list, however, Paul Hacker with 92%. So Jolly trying to pick up his 4th career victory in a car that has been dominant here all weekend. The only thing that really separates his car from Amos Johnson's, aside from a tweak here and there, is that they are on different brands of tires. Jolly running on BF Goodrich. Amos Johnson and Dennis Shaw are attired, if you will, on Yokohama. Parker Johnstone a bit further back, also on the Goodrich tires. Now you're riding with Dave Jolly as he takes us off toward turn number 6, starting a bit downhill here. Around to the left, keeping the car down tight to the inside, fighting the steering, as these largely stock suspensions give you an awful lot of feedback through the steering wheel and trying to nibble away right at the edge of the tire limits of adhesion. Through turn 7, this is a climbing turn, the toe of the boot section of the course that was added here several years ago to lengthen the course to its current length of over 3 miles. Climbing uphill sharply on this straightaway. This is a long pull in low horsepower cars. And then to turn number 8, the heel of the boot. Pretty standard 90-degree turn. Swing it out wide after a late apex. And a little dip in this straightaway. Back up to turn 9. This is where the boot section rejoins the older traditional part of the course, and he fights the steering wheel again just a bit onto this straightaway, back onto what's now used as the NASCAR course. Quick left-hander and a fast one. Turn number 9, keep the car pointed way down low and let it work up in a short shoot over here to turn 10, where last August Ricky Rudd and Rusty Wallace got side by side, ran on a racetrack right there just before the Camel Bridge. Back around to the pits, the control tower, and the start-finish line. Just as you get past the pits here at Watkins Glen, the ground drops away sharply, and it's very quickly downhill, downshifting as you hear for turn number 1. Keeping the car low and tight, still headed downhill. A little bit off camber there as you get down toward turn number 2. And just as you apex turn 2, bam, you're headed back up the hill again. And into the Essex. Turn 3, a left-hander blind to the top. So if a car is there inside that Armco tunnel, you really have to rely on your flaggers there. You're accelerating all the way up the hill to the long back straightaway that leads to turn number 5. Dave Jolly, the race leader, timed at 129 miles an hour on this backstretch during qualifying. Right behind him, the drafting Mazdas of Shaw and Johnson at 130 miles an hour each. This is a tough corner, turn 5. It's downhill. The car really wants to get away from you there. Here are the manufacturer's points. Mazda a narrow lead over Acura with 2 wins apiece. We'll be right back.
Glen has changed over the years. Years ago, these used to be the Howgate Tavern. They used to bring out tables and chairs and watch the cars as they'd race.
Miles Collier Rock, a place where the former Grand Prix driver had a bad crash in the early days of racing on the streets of Watkins Glen, New York. Now, of course, they've moved up the hill into the west and onto this beautiful road race circuit. Keeping up with Walter Payton, still kind of crabbing along. The back wheel's not running in the same plane as the front, but he's holding his own in 15th spot in the Oldsmobile. Lots of different makes of cars involved in the Luke Clutch Challenge Series. The Mazdas, of course, today running at the head of the pack. Right behind them, the Acuras and the Oldsmobiles. There's a Volkswagen Scirocco in today's race. Pepe Combo's Nissan 240. The Rutherford and Norris Mitsubishis. Bill Lambros in a Dodge Daytona. Pat Pearson's Nissan we saw earlier. Several Dodge Chargers, a Pontiac Le Mans, 2 Mercures, and even a Ford Escort and a BMW. And it's very much a win on Sunday, sell on Monday class for the manufacturers and the tire manufacturers, each of whom, as we've shown you, have their own point championships. There's Dave Jolly, the race leader, coming up over the Gene DeWitt Tunnel and back up toward the back straightaway one more time. At 67, Mazda's point lead would jump quite a bit. The quickest of the Acuras in today's race, presently in 4th position. So that Jolly could take that 5-point manufacturer's lead for Mazda and expand it to 15 points. Despite the turbo versus non-turbo controversy, each make has notched 2 wins this season. Mazda at Lime Rock in Mid-Ohio, Acura a winner at Atlanta and West Palm Beach. Bouncing around a bit on the suspension as Dave Jolly brings it back in line for the front straightaway. A little bit of windshield molding loose there as he heads uphill. All alone, has had no close challenger. And the only discernible difference between his car and Amos Johnson's and Dennis Shaw's, Johnson and Shaw on Yokohama's, and Jolly on BF Goodrich tires. That's the only discernible difference between those 2 cars, and yet look at the difference in performance on the racetrack. They're in the last lap here at Watkins Glen, New York, and should they finish without a change in order, Dave Jolly will take over the point lead from Parker Johnstone, who right now is 4th in this race. Jolly, 20 points for winning would give him a 75. Parker Johnstone with 67 would be the point runner-up. Amos Johnson would hold on to 3rd, Dennis Shaw 4th, and Doug Peterson 5th. In the manufacturer's chase, a Mazda win today. As coming to the final turn in the checkered flag is Dave Jolly, who wins the Luke Clutch Challenge for International Sedan. That boosts Mazda to, instead of a 5-point lead, a 15-point lead in manufacturer standings, 87 to 72, 3 wins to 2 over arch rival Acura, Oldsmobile 3rd, Nissan 4th. And in the tire wars, BF Goodrich expands its lead over Yokohama 95 to 77 with 4 victories to Yokohama's 1. General and Toyo trail in the tire category. Dave Jolly picks up the win at Watkins Glen, and we'll be back to meet him in Victory Lane right after these messages.
This is ESPN, the Total Sports Network.
Thursday Thunder is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And by Yokohama, one of the world's largest tire manufacturers. If you come to Watkins Glen, be sure not just to see the racetrack, but come out here to Watkins Glen itself. It's a beautiful walk. Here's Rick DeBrule.
So here's a look at how the top 10 finished in the Luke Clutch Challenge for international sedans here at Watkins Glen. Dave Jolly proving that that combination of the Mazda MX-6 Turbo and the BF Goodrich tires are going to be pretty tough to beat throughout the rest of the year. Let's go now to Mike Joey, who's standing by in Victory Circle.
Dave Jolly has gone from green flag to checker here. An impressive win by nearly 6 seconds. Would the term cakewalk apply?
No, I don't think so. sort of like I ran as hard as I could the whole race. The car handled just super. I think that was really what the advantage we had, is it was just perfect everywhere.
Even on the first long straightaway, though, you were able to drive away from the similar Mazdas and the Acuras, just leave everybody back there.
Well, Amos got a pretty bad shot on that first straightaway. If you look at the replay, you'll see he was on the outside of that first corner, and that first corner determines how fast you go down straightaway.
Yeah. Was that a tough one to go in that corner and see him right there alongside you?
Oh, yeah. I knew I wanted to leave him room, and I figured he would leave me room, and we'd get through it, and one of us would be ahead.
Okay, what makes this car so good?
Well, the Mazda MX-6 GT is just a super car to start with, and I think in this case we're running the BFG Goodrich radial tires, and I think right now that they are the tire to be running.
That's the story from Victory Lane here at Watkins Glen. Let's go to Rick DeBrule to wrap things up.
So Dave Jolly's name becomes part of the history here at the Glen, going down along with those other winners back in the Formula One days. If this was 20 years ago, in fact, it'd be time to go down to the Seneca Lodge and do a little celebrating with those Formula One guys. Come to think of it, that's not a bad idea even without him. Speaking of celebration, we'll take one last look at the 4th of July festivities from Elmira, New York. For Mike Joy and Eli Gold, I'm Rick DeBrule. Let's go live now to Larry Newber at Indianapolis Raceway Park.